joining us today for the INSTO webinar, technical webinar on water and wastewater management. I'm welcoming today 4 speakers, 3 of the observatories and an external speaker on the subject. The subject which usually can lead to very emotional discussions if interpreted in an anecdotal manner. This because of that we prioritize this focus on water to the other issue areas in our discussions of the observatories. The commitment of observatories to base their discussions on evidence is what brings us all together, in addition to then later on in a participatory manner to discuss the objectives and the results. I thank the speakers already right now for their preparation and their availability to share the insights on this very important issue, and have the pleasure to introduce our very first speaker from the Tourism Observatory of the Canary Islands in Spain, Professor Padrón Fomero. The camera is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the team of INSTO for inviting me to this seminar. And a very warm welcome to all the audience, wherever they are in this planet. There's my salutation. Let me, I have a little problem with the presentation here. Let me share my screen.
Now we can see your screen.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, my presentation today goes about what are the main water and wastewater challenges in the Canary Islands, and I would like first to introduce you to where and what we do. The Canary Islands are it's a small archipelago of 8 islands in the west coast of Africa. As you can see, very close to the Sahara Desert in the coast, but also to the Sahel region, which is one of the most affected by, desertification and climate change impacts. We are also part of the Macaronesian archipelago, which are a group of archipelagos in the Atlantic coast. Here you have Cape Verde archipelago, which is an independent country, but also you have Madeira and the Azores archipelago, which we have, a very special status and commercial relationships with not only Spain, but also with all the European members. I chose this heat map from yesterday, not only because it was easy to show where we are, but also, even though we are so close to the West African coast, the weather or the temperature here, it's very stable along the whole year, the temperature and the weather conditions. So we enjoy an average temperature along the year of 20 degrees, and we are not tropical, so we get a few some rain during the rainy season in spring and the winter time. But the main water provision comes from the water wells or water aquifers in the islands. So the archipelago has 8 islands, and it's about 1,300 kilometers away from the Spanish closest coast, 7,500 square kilometers of surface, a population of 2.2 million almost. And tourism is the main economic sector, with about 15 million inbound tourists in 2019, 13 of which were international. And we are the leading region in Europe with more than 100 million overnights along the year. As a result of this, GDP contribution is very high, and an average in the island is about 35%, which, compared to the 11 or 12% of GDP direct contribution of tourism in Spain, it's quite, it's quite an important sector. I'm part of the team that prepared this report for the government in order to enter or to join the INSTO network of observatories. And the islands have two universities. The one I'm working on is University of La Laguna, and the other big island has also one university that joined the team for this. Regarding the impact of COVID-19, as you can see from the figures in my, sorry, I passed my, okay, here. As you can see from this figure, tourist arrivals have dropped significantly with respect to the normal scenario in the first months of 2019. So tourist arrivals have dropped significantly, and they have not recovered. Hotel occupation shows here is high, not as high as it used to be during these months. But also you have to consider that, maybe only 9% of hotel establishments are open now in the islands. And the most astonishing figure is the revenue per available room, which, it's quite low for this season. So I'm going to bring you three key messages about water and wastewater management in the tourism sector. First the first message is the context and the challenges are very, very important. It's not important only what is happening between among hotels or among the tourism firms, but also what is happening in the land, in the destination, in the island, in the region itself with this resource. It's a very local resource. It's a very important local resource for all the activities in the economy, and challenges for most parts of the world, but for us are going to be really, really key. The second message is that we need information. I mean, not only we as universities or research centers, agents need information. Water is a complete, black hole, at least here in the islands. And we need more information on water consumption, which services are using the water, and what is the water quality for tourism. My idea is that for many sustainability issues and for climate change challenges, the tourism sector is the least prepared sector of all in the economy to face what's coming. And my third message is, we need innovation. We need innovation, especially coming from water intelligence, from water digitalization, and alliances between, the private sector and the public sector or the managers of water in order to face, the future challenges. And especially, I'm going to focus on the work I'm leading with my research group on smart metering and monitoring from the water utilities. What can be done from this perspective? Oh, sorry. These are my key messages. I'm so to give you some view of what the islands, what are the main problems on the main aspects and landscape shaped by water in the island. The tradition of development is, agricultural production. Maybe 100 to 100 years ago, we focused on, or the island focused on banana export to the mainland and to mainland Spain and Europe. And this is a typical landscape, and water comes mainly from private infrastructure, digging or mining wells into the island. More recently, in the late 60s and 70s, tourism development started to grow. It's a very overcrowded or crowded type of destination where there's a mix of residential and tourism activity, but very, concentrated in different island municipalities in the island. More recently, in the 90s and the 2000s, and different, more type of, at least that look sustainable resorts with very large scales, bigger categories, especially focused on all-included services, which demand a lot of water and a lot of services inside the hotels with respect to other models. But this type of tourism, overcrowded, large resorts also survives with another type, more sustainable tourism inside the islands, inland, with respect, which respect traditions, and and also, in a different scale. I'm showing you some pictures of the islands, very mountainous, some of them, and very green, and this vegetation can also be impacted by climate change. But the the east islands are also very dry, more volcanic, and they do have a big lack of water. So focusing on water, the main source of water, as I told you before, are aquifer, or is the aquifer water. Indeed, because of these developments during the last 150 years, the institutional framework for water management, it's quite singular in the Canary Islands with respect to the rest of the world, because water is private. I mean, there are private markets. Water is owned by water communities that have invested over the years in order to dig into the land all these big wells and get water out from the aquifer. Some islands have some rain reservoirs, but that's very little. And these private markets combined management with public intervention, especially since the 90s, in order to limit increasing water prices and to promote competition, especially within the distributional network, because the distributional network is also private. Public intervention is done by the 7 island water council. So each island has its water planning and its water management. There's a segmentation of the market. So there's some water, about 60% for irrigation, especially for subsidized banana export markets. And the other 40% is more for domestic or industrial networks. Overexploitation has been happening for the last 150 years, mainly because of externalities among, water owners, because the aquifers are kind of a common pool resource. There's been a historical lack of artificial reservoirs that allow for water stocking, for example, in the rainy season. So most of the water from the aquifers has gone into the sea without use at all. There's a big water pollution problem in the islands, not only because the aquifers are becoming salted, but also because of agricultural activity that pollutes with different fertilizers, and also many volcanic gases and fluor are avoiding or are precluding some wells from being exploited anymore. And of course, the big problem is we have a lack of information, because private owners and private managers do not share information with the public. As a result, nowadays half of the islands get water from desalination technologies. About 0.5% of the water comes now from desalination in the islands, and there's some representative water regeneration production. The most important problem nowadays is there are financial imbalances. So government has not, developed adequate regulation and adequate public-private cooperation tools, and not economic instruments in order to, raise revenue, in order to maintain the infrastructure, or even, promote investment for these future challenges. To give you a review, even though water is private, maybe 60% of the water is lost in the distributional networks. This is quite important when when we'll be focusing on tourism. Energy intensity is quite important for the salination and for the whole network, pumping everywhere water. And there is definitely an emergency situation regarding wastewater. I mean, more than half of the discharge of water is not registered or even authorized in the islands. And even though there has been built a number of treatment plants, we do not have complete sewer networks. So the water keeps going into the wells, back into the wells. And of course, I'm talking about black waters. So the aquifer is being polluted, the land is being polluted mainly from irrigation and from black water wells. Um, so to finalize my diagnosis, there's a lack of information. Social participation is not a tradition because, you know, we have private markets and water comes whatever you do, and lack of private resources. So tourism environmental costs, at least in the islands for water, waste and wastewater, are invisible. They are, you know, within the residential services and networks, and we are not able to measure what's going on, if they are efficient, how to improve efficiency, and so on. And the polluter pays principle, which is mandatory in the European Union, is systematically violated. So there are cross subsidies between firms, cross subsidies between destinations, cross subsidies between sectors, etc., etc. So we are, as far as I know, in the universities, we have two main lines of research: sustainable destinations promoting water intelligence, another type of research and actions from the hotel, which is more related to reducing water bills. I'm going to show you very quickly to finish my presentation some of the results we are getting from a case study doing in one of the destinations in Gran Canaria. We have a sample of 213 big establishments with smart meters and a panel data for 8 years. Here are the main figures. As you can see, most of the hotel establishments consume about, you know, almost 400 liters per overnight. And there's a big difference on the type of establishment. This looks promising. And let me tell you, to finalize my presentation, you know, how difficult it is to approach water management in the islands. Excuse me. Water is a very complex resource, so we are building dashboards, smart dashboards, in order to analyze water. Let me see. So if I can get this out. Okay. The main problem to analyze water from the destination point of view is that in water, you don't have firms, you have contracts. So we got, you know, from this municipality, 460 contracts, and we have to link them to the establishments. So about 1 year and 1.5 years of our research has been to be able to link the information that the utility had from the contract, because they don't know their clients. They say water, but they don't sell services to the water companies. And with these dashboards, where you get from contracts to hotel establishments and link to the databases you have on tourism, you are able to you know, give a view of the company, of what are their main users, water users in the tourism sector. I know this is in Spanish, but you know, this looks promising because we can analyze for different municipalities which are the main you know, consumers, their evolution, and also, you know, develop some type of statistical tools, like, I don't know, for example, this one, where we can show the company how, how to get to know their own consumers. Sorry very much. Sorry for my timing. If you are more interested in water, and of course we are exploiting our database to know better the determinants of water consumption. But if you want to know more what we are doing with water smart meters and water intelligence in the island, this is our last publication on a natural experiment for consumers. And we are about to publish our results also with some experiments to improve interaction between, water utilities and hotels or, tourist establishments, in order to improve, have more frequent information and to improve their interactions. Thank you very much, and sorry for my timing.
Professor Padron, thank you very much for this presentation. Very insightful, and the challenges around the framework and in collecting the evidence, which is the necessary basis then later on for taking informed decisions. That for a tourism destination is a very insightful explanation, and inspiring for others to see the challenges the tourism sector's sustainability has to resolve. I'll take the opportunity right now, Professor Padron, if you undo the sharing of your screen, then we have the possibilities. Thank you very much. We have the possibilities for everybody right now to appear in our picture of this INSTO technical webinar. I invite everybody on today's call and to switch their cameras on. This is the picture we are using for social media, so please be ready. My colleague Lorna Atancio is taking over and is taking now a picture of all of us. Lorna, over to you.
All right, we'll take 2 separate pictures because there are like 2 pages. All right, so first page, 1, 2, 3. All right, 1 second. And then second page, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Lorna, very much for this. Are you happy?
Happy?
That is good. Thank you for that. And now it's time to introduce our next speaker from the Sustainable Tourism Observatory of Lake Toba in Indonesia, Ms. Lisa Ginting, the head of monitoring, the head of the Monitoring Center for Sustainable Tourism Observatories. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Dave Glazer, Ms. Cordula, and all of the INSTO teams for inviting and letting us share our works. I'm Nur Lisa Ginting, the head of a monitoring center for Sustainable Tourism Observatory, Universitas Sumatera Utara, Indonesia. Today, I would like to share about how we did our monitoring in water and wastewater management issues. First, we will talk about who we are and where is our monitoring areas. Lake Toba is located in North Sumatra province and is the biggest volcano-tectonic quarter caldera in the world and the largest lake in Southeast Asia. With our outstanding value, finally we got our membership of the UNESCO Global Geopark from UNESCO in 2020. With the wide water surface in the Lake Toba, make water sustainability issues become essential in this area. I would like to briefly introduce ourselves. We established in 2016 with our commitment to support the application of the SDG concept in the Lake Toba Tourism Observatory. We formed the MCSTO in 2016 and successful registered STO Panguran as a member of INSTO UNWTO. We started our work from the 4 villages in 1 sub-district. From 4 villages, we were expanding our monitoring areas into 31 sub-districts from 7 regencies in 2019. And unfortunately, in the last year, we should be grateful to put our focus only on the 4 key tourism areas. This is how COVID-19 has influenced our place in 2020 up to now. Since the first announcement of the outbreak by our president in February 2020, the graphic fell drastically and remained flat in April and up to now, which results from the closing of all the tourist destinations. Next, this is our indicators and methodology which used on our monitoring activity in water and wastewater management. We established the 7 indicators for measuring the water management issues. Those indicators are needed to determine how are the quality and availability of the water in the Lake Toba. Meanwhile, to discover the impact of water on the image of the destination, we spread the questionnaire to 100 respondents from the key tourism areas. In terms of the wastewater management issue, we used 3 indicators, namely wastewater treatment systems, wastewater treatment and reuse, and the impact of the wastewater treatment. This is our monitoring methodology. The initial study, based on the data from Universitas Sumatera Utara, for instance, our research and our community services, we obtain the data with observations, interview, and tourist questionnaires, especially for the water monitoring issues. Our data was supported by key stakeholders, including academic, public institutions, and private sectors. We also conducted the focus group discussion on 2 major issues group on our monitoring activity to measure the indicator performance. As it can be seen from the given information here, this is the list of our key stakeholders. Not only did we approach the national government, but also from the provincial and the local governments. The greatest challenges of our monitoring came from the diversity of the regencies in our monitoring areas. We made the partnership with the 7 regencies around Lake Toba with their respective policies. Each regency have a different type of agency, and absolutely it made the non-uniformity of the availability data. The other challenges are about specific data regarding tourism towards the environmental issues and in digitalized data. That's why we had to do the traditional way to collect our data. Next is our findings, reviews, and indicator performance. Our monitoring shows that the water of Lake Toba is slightly polluted. There was an imbalance between the lake's capacity and the number of pollutants in Lake Toba. Therefore, controlling the source of contaminants is very important and very crucial. Water availability also couldn't meet the needs of the locals and tourists. That's why communities who have not been served obtain their water needs from springs, rivers, and the lake. This is performance indicators of water management. Some indicators are quite good. However, there are several indicators under the targets, specifically conservation, water savings, contaminations level of tourist activities, and the purity of water channels. For wastewater management in the Lake Toba, we found that domestic and industrial wastewater were yet to have specific treatment. And the worst is wastewater management in the ranks and aquaculture is not present at all. So the waste from these industries goes directly to the lakes. throughout those small rivers. For these issues, we got the unsatisfied indicators performance. All indicator performance are below the targets, starting from wastewater treatment systems, wastewater treatment, and use, and impact of the wastewater treatment. These results should encourage immediate action from the policymaker in the Lake Toba. Last but not least is the lesson identified from the monitoring of water and wastewater management in the Lake Toba. The control on water contamination has been regulated by the state central government since 2001, which is government regulation number 83. However, wastewater management issues is still impacting Lake Toba water quality. The trophic status, the level of contaminant, and the lake's carrying capacity have proven that the current lake water is polluted. Water management could not rely on one party. Multi-stakeholders coordination is needed. Another provider could support the existing companies in the distributing water to residents and the tourism establishment. Immediate action to restore and to rehabilitate the lake water quality is needed. The government should uphold the implication of the regulation according to the wastewater management. Thank you. That's all from us. Terima kasih.
Dr. Ginting, thank you very much for this presentation, which adds to the diversity of challenges related to water and wastewater management and the surrounding framework conditions which influence the simple collection of evidence. A very important second presentation on the issue from a completely different area in the world and monitoring area we hope will achieve progress with the next year, and that we can see there and share the lessons identified and learned on the subject. Thank you very much. That brings me to my the third speaker from Portugal, the Alentejo Sustainable Tourism Observatory, Mr. Avelino Sousa. Thank you very much for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Good morning to all. Let me share my presentation. Welcome from Alentejo in Portugal. You are seeing the presentation, correct? Okay. Alentejo belongs to Portugal, as you know. Sorry. This is what we will show in 10 minutes, some numbers and the indicators concerning water and wastewater management. Our mission is to promote knowledge management to all the stakeholders, and our objectives are to monitoring the activity in sustainability. We are in Portugal, Europe. The region is the biggest region in Portugal with 34% of the territory, but only 7% of the population. Perhaps we can say that Alentejo can be a slow travel destination because of the number of people in the territory. It's a little different from the Canary Islands. Portugal have already 3 observatories in the land, and in the near future we'll have 7 observatories, 1 for each territory in Portugal. COVID means that we finished in 2019 with our best year in Portugal and also in Alentejo, and then when the pandemic arrived, we had in the January and February, two months very good, and then in March everything go down, and 2021 In the last numbers that we have is till April. The numbers are more or less the same for 2020, is 70% less in Portugal and less 38% in Alentejo. Alentejo is a very dry area, but we put this lake is the biggest lake, artificial lake in Portugal, is Alqueva. Very nice to come to see and to spend some time here, because it's very nice. In the observatory, we finished the indicators in 2019. The indicators that we put, I think they must allow the benchmarking for changing behaviors and attitudes, and they can help companies, investors, and even national authorities to their decision-making process. If you see in the first 13 water management indicators, the first 6 are we copy from the INSTO already, and the others we put for a perspective for more operational. I believe that they must bring some benchmarking for the companies to change the numbers, the figures that they have. As you see, we only monitorize 2 of them already, but we are in a crossroad in the moment. We have a lot of things ongoing, and we believe that in the next, till the end of 2021, we'll achieve a lot of numbers, figures to show you, because now is only theoretical. We also have monitorization in 5 sectors. These are our major goals in accommodation, food and beverage restaurants, outdoor activities, tour operators and travel agents, and tourism transport. Our national board is doing a lot of things at the same time. We start in 2017 with the tourism strategy for 2027, and we pretend to achieve our goal to achieve in environment is 90% in energy, water and waste, reduce 90%, or have companies that promote efficiency in the water and energy. We have also other initiatives like the Travel BE with a lot of numbers. If you want to see numbers from Portugal, we will go to Travel BE, and we have lots of numbers there. Also, we launched this 2 weeks ago, a sustainable survey for the Next, is an organization that is also supported by the Tourism of Portugal. And we are launching now the Aqua Hotels, that is a water classification for hotels. In my humble opinion, I think sometimes this is too much noise, because I think in my idea, most of the time, less is more. And the challenges that we bring to this meeting, I start more than a challenge. I think this is a teaser. It's a teaser for the INSTO. We believe that we must concentrate all the information, all the data in the same platform. Must be or national or international. Why? For instance, I put here Hotel Energy Solutions is a website that UNWTO had in the past. Was very interesting with a lot of information, but now is not on this discontinued. Then we know that it's very difficult to apply the criteria, the indicators for the different sectors. One is very easier to put these indicators on the accommodation and in restaurants, but and the others as outdoor activities or transport service will be very difficult. Then we must train the stakeholders, principally the owners and the managers of the hotels, for a better manager. If you measure better, you will have a better management, of course. But some of them not realize that. Then sometimes for the change is necessary financial support. And for the list and last, we think that we must talk with the software house to introduce sustainability KPIs in the PMS, the property management system, because then we'll be more easily, quickly to have the data that we need for the future. And as we say in Portugal, obrigado, and visit our country. I think I have the 10 minutes of my time. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sousa, thank you very much. And I'll take this presentation and now the fact that 3 INSTO observatories presented quite differently on the issue of the indicators and the issue areas, water and wastewater management, to provide some clarifications on the need of standardization. The most important thing for us is that we move away from a purely economic measurement of tourism in defining its success. The next relevant step is naturally based on the wish to have more evidence. But at the same time, this evidence we are creating must be relevant and useful for a better sustainable management. And here lays the enormous challenge. Very often, easily available information is not relevant for the actors. We will get to this level that UNWTO, in the framework of INSTO, will standardize and will share information. But it is first of all important for us to improve the understanding of the challenges and then move to the next level. The series of these technical webinars is exactly aimed at sharing, based on what we have learned from your annual reports, the best experiences in each of the mandatory issue areas, and to trigger through that in a very transparent manner a wider discussion, and through this wider discussion then reaching consensus on what is useful, what can be standardized at a global level, and what needs to be left to be interpreted at a destination level. But we will get there. And I think the 3 observatories already, for their very insightful presentations, as I said at the beginning, water and wastewater, 2 very emotional, or 2 indicators triggering very often very emotional anecdotal exchanges of the stakeholders. And it is our objective to improve these discussions and to reach over here consensus by all those impacted in a destination and those benefiting and living in a destination, so that sustainable development is not only a sustainable development of tourism, but of destinations. Now I invite our guest speaker, Mr. Vincent Giroux from Suez, Spain, to present on the issue of water from the perspective of Suez.
Thank you. Thank you very much, first of all, for your invitation to share our expertise in your technical webinar. I'm Vincent Giroux. I'm working at Suez, Spain since more than 15 years as a sustainable development manager. And I wanted to congratulate all the participants for your presentation, your efforts, and the will of treating those problems of water and wastewater treatment. In fact, here today I will share maybe not indicator, but more methodology. You all know about carbon footprint, but there is a huge footprint family. And so I decided that it could be interesting to share with you the water footprint methodology. Maybe most of you already know a little bit about it, but I wanted to, I think it can be an opportunity for sustainable tourism to start studying this methodology to some application. In fact, it's not the first time that Suez is present at INSTO. 4 years ago, you have here the link of our presentation, more focused on technologies and innovation for tourism. This kind of technology are still available. In fact, in Suez, we are operating. In fact, the scorecard shown by Noemi, I think, is part of our data by Canaragua in Canarias. It was not planned. I didn't know that you would show it, but it's perfect. It's a kind of technology we can offer and data. But today we'll talk a little bit more about innovation, digitalization, and knowledge. We have a technical center named CETAQUA, which has an expertise in carbon and water footprint calculation. In fact, going into the literature, it's not two unknown areas, tourism and water footprint. In fact, there is like an example of a study estimating the direct and indirect water use of tourism in Eastern Mediterranean. I invite you to read this study. It's interesting, but it highlights that food consumption by tourists appears to have by far the most significant impact. So it's interesting to have some focus also on food. And they highlight that the water footprint could be a methodology to analyze import-export balances. Okay, and I think it's interesting to see also that some administrations are starting to consider water footprint calculation as mandatory, such as Andalusia with the climate change law. So this is for the context. So what is the water footprint? The water footprint is a methodology which is interesting because it's standardized by the Water Footprint Network. It has its direct use of water, but also it includes indirect use, so the value chain. It has geographical and temporal dimension, and it can be applied to many areas like a person, a product, an organization, but also for a destination, such as a study I will share later on. The Water Footprint is an international organization. CETAQUA is part of it. And ESAGUA is in Spain, a network of mostly agri-food societies committed with reducing their water footprint. And you will see why. In fact, the why is here. To produce a carbonated drink bottle of half a liter, it's needed 185 liters of water by the water footprint methodology. 100 grams of cooked ham, 910 liters. And for a liter of tap water, 1.2 liter of water. Okay, and you have the sources here of those calculations. So you may ask why. It's because this water footprint includes different types of water uses, the green one, the blue one, and the gray one. The green one is the rain, the consumption of rainwater incorporated in the product, important for agricultural products. The blue one is the one we have talked a lot in your former presentation. It's a consumption of surface and groundwater incorporated into products. This one can be direct, incorporated inside the process, or in what we use for the process, like energy, chemicals, and so on. And we have also the gray water footprint, which is more an environmental part, the water necessary for the receiving environment to assimilate the pollutant. So it's important, for example, for lakes, for rivers, and so on. It's different from the gray water denomination used more for the water of showers, baths, the one we use in the house. No? So this is the different types. The methodology is standardized. It's really similar to carbon footprint with some exceptions. When you start calculate, you have a couple of methodology. We use the water footprint one most because it's maybe simpler and easier to understand, but you can use an ISO methodology. You define your reduction plan with efficiency, and we have seen in former presentation some initiatives that could fit into this reduction plan. There is no compensation mechanism. You know, you can compensate carbon, CO2, but you cannot, it's not into place, but it could be really interesting to put into place compensation of water footprint. And at the end, you communicate. So this is more or less the same, but I think that with your observatories, you already have a lot of data on food, on impact with hotels and so on. So you don't have zero data, you have study, and you can ask maybe for complementary data needed to calculate a water footprint. But first of all, you have to define your scope. What do you want? The city, the destination, just hotels, restaurants, or the whole region. So you get the data, you make your analysis with university, with Setaqua, with any expert. You can go to the water footprint network and you will see companies that can help you, and you put into place the monitoring process. The benefits is that you contemplate the entire value chain and not only the visible water. You consider efficiency of consumptive and degradative water use. You assess the actual sustainability of water consumption and its the contribution of the activity to preserve the natural environment. So here, the detail, for example, for the carbonated drink bottle, it's 185 liters. Most of it comes from the production of sugar. It's a green water footprint, 78, made by, used for sugar, caffeine, and vanilla, for example. And it's mostly indirect use of the water footprint. If you go to the cooked ham, which has a higher, we should compare at the same volume, no? But which has a higher water footprint of the former example. Also 76% is the green water footprint used for the animal food, okay? But it's interesting because maybe you see the link with agricultural and you can integrate every data in the same comparison, okay? In the same manner. Here it's another study I invite you to read. It's quite interesting. It's a study about the water footprint in and of tourism in Spain. Maybe you know it. I highlight maybe some few points, but it says that 16%, it should be more, for example, in Canarias Island, 16% of the water footprint of deriving from the GDP is by the non-resident tourism in Spain. Okay, and it suggests some levers interesting and also compensation mechanism. So what can be done? I think you are already doing a lot of actions. I've liked a lot of actions you have put into place. I think monitoring, also putting into place indicators is interesting. But what can be done? Maybe more ideas here. Promote tap water is interesting. Drinking is interesting. Maybe start thinking about low water footprint consumption. And as we have seen, some saving technologies, the smart metering into hotels, no, for maybe for tourists. But at city and destination level, you can also calculate your water footprint, implement smart metering and connected it with your reporting system. Promote recycling of water, of course. In Spain, I think it's 10%. It's quite low for a scarce. It's huge, but low for a scarce situation of water. Implement green infrastructure and nature-based solutions is interesting, and also provide access to tap water for tourists. Okay, so in fact, most of agri-food companies are using those indicators, but I think that the next step is starting to use this methodology for other sectors such as tourism. So to my point of view, tourism can be a reference sector using water footprint as a management tool. It's a standardized way to see the uses of water, and maybe especially interesting in scarce, in water scarce region or with pollution problems. Okay. And I think that the future of a sustainable tourist, what I would like to be in the future, is to have the possibility to be a carbon neutral tourist, but also a water neutral tourist. So have the opportunity to compensate locally the water I use for my leisure. So thank you very much. I think I've done with my time. If you need further information, you can contact me. You have here my email, and thank you for your attention.
And Mr. Giroud, thank you very much for this final presentation and the explanation you provided on the methodology of the water footprint. That brings us right now to the end of the presentations and the opportunity for our participants to raise their hand and ask questions to our 4 speakers. You can do so by simply raising the hand or indicating in the chat to us that you have a question. The chat is open and questions and answers can now start. The same is also true for our other speakers if they want to ask questions to each other. Mr. Sousa, the floor is yours.
Thank you there. I'd like to ask to the other observatories if they work with a sample, a special sample, or with a large universe of companies to have the data. Thank you.
Professor Padron, you want to start answering that?
Yeah, well, for example, here we are doing both approaches. So one leading group is trying to have a perspective of the whole destination and including all, implicated agents or stakeholders. And the other group is working more bottom up. So, they're doing surveys on hotel operations and, trying to establish, because tourism is very, very heterogeneous. So whatever one establishment is doing is completely different from the others. So it's very important to work bottom up and also, top down in order to have a complete picture of the agents, the perceptions of water consumption, and also which are the main problems. I think from what we are seeing today, it is true that tourism as an activity, it's very complex. It takes a lot of different sectors and not a lot of different environmental interactions, not only with water, but also with energy and other local and global resources. And it's been hiding from, many, many decades, all that activity, and the efforts we have to make has to be variated. The presentation of Vincent from Suez, indeed, he's right. We work together with Canarawa. They have been really, really helpful in the islands in order to start this process of, seeing water more as a service to the companies or to the clients or to society than, a product itself, a cubic meter you sell, and, you try to raise revenues according to the, regulatory framework you have at one moment. So we really understand that this is a problem, a very, very, very complex problem, and we need everyone to get involved because future challenges are quite, we are expecting water restrictions very soon, maybe in the next 5-10 years. The islands will have, these conflicts between sectors, within agriculture, between residents. So it's no problem only on how are we going to reduce water consumption, but how are we going to deal with the conflicts that are, the economic, social, and environmental conflicts that are coming. And, we have been living in a very pink cloud for the last decades. So companies like Suez or, Aqualia or other, multinationals have been solving a problem of not having water. But the problem has become really, really overwhelming. And, what I see today is that what we are facing here in the island is very similar to what might be happening all over the world. You try to tackle the problem, but it's really, really complex. Not to say about water footprint. I mean, if we don't have data to understand just one hotel that may have 9 contracts of water, they don't know what they're doing with those contracts. The company don't know what is happening inside the hotel. I mean, these are thousands of cubic meter each year, and we don't know. We have been totally, black about what water is being used for and how. I mean, let me tell you that the investment in the hotel industry, in the tourism industry for water efficiency might be a complete deployment of resources. So while hoteliers might be investing thousands of euros, millions of euros to change their gardening, to externalize their laundry industry, to become really to have a very nice and digital showers that they know where you are and the temperature you need. That's really amazing and will play some role in the future. But when you're losing water in the networks, I mean, outside the hotel, you are wasting more than 60% of that water, and your black waters are going into the sea where your tourists are swimming every day. That's more than, digitalizing your hotel. That's really narrow, and for me, it will be a complete deployment of resources if we don't have the big picture.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ginting, you wish to add?
Okay. When we monitor our in the monitoring for our water and wastewater treatments, what we are doing is actually we go to the field, and actually we are not taking the samples, because we go to the agencies that were responsible for checking the water, and like, for example, the environmental agencies and the water providers, and also the health agencies. This is actually the agencies that we have to get all the data. And at the same time, that's why what we are mentioned before, that we actually facing a quite a difficult thing, because we have to facing 7 agencies who have different leaders and different data, because the data in our places is not easy to access, because of they are not online data. They don't have the data ready. That's why we like what we mentioned before. We go traditional way. We go to the field and we facing the people there, and we also take a, of course, yeah. When we do a questionnaire, we directly goes there. And also do the interview to the local people, and also the the local agencies. This is how actually we find difficulties that when we are doing monitor, but we still have the data, the data from the agencies. We are not doing ourselves, but we gathering the data. Then also from, if there is also from the university who are studying doing research, then we take also the data. This is how actually we are doing, and after that we do like a FGD, focus group discussions. We invite all of these stakeholders in order to discuss what is actually we already find out about these conditions. This is how we actually doing the monitors in our places, because we still don't have the same data, even though the statistics office is also not really have a very good data, but we have to interview and we have to convince the people and also the officials in the field. This is how we doing our monitorings in the field, because the like the environmental agencies, they have a regular data on checking the water and the wastewater. This is how we did in our area. Thank you.
Dr. Yinting, thank you very much. That brings us to an end of our today's technical INSTO webinar. I think the three observatories and our guest speaker very much for the insights they have shared. The discussion also showed an interesting development that in some areas it is actually the economic activity of tourism which is driving over there the discussion around the resources and advancing therefore the sustainable development discussion of destinations. A very interesting development, and indicates here that tourism, when focusing on sustainability, can have much larger impacts than just an economic for a destination. I take the opportunity to announce here that our next technical webinar focusing on tourism seasonality will take place